Hi guys, so as promised, I'm gonna be explaining to you the questions on taxation um, because we couldn't have time to do that in class, plus you will be writing this in your test. So the first one is activity 5 and it says Mr. Suta is 65 years old, so that's information number 1. He is still working and earns a taxable income of 347 171 rands per annum for the year 2018 and 2019. And mind you, per annum means per year for 12 months. He contributes to a medical aid fund for himself and his wife. So, which means that he pays the medical aid fund for two people. So, we need to take that into consideration. First of all, we need to look at the tax bracket that he falls under. And this is the one he will be under here, the one that says between 305 and so on, and 423,000. So the tax that he'll have to pay is this amount here, 63,853 plus 31% of any amount above the one that's stated here. Okay. So another information that we need to take into consideration is where they're telling us that he's 65 years old. And this is where his tax rebate will be. He qualifies for a tax rebate of 7,713 rands. So remember, tax rebate refers to the amount that SARS reduces one's tax by. What they do, they calculate your tax for the whole year. And then if you are somebody who falls within any of this category, these are the amounts that your actual tax will be reduced by. So if they end up charging you normal tax, they then refund you back this amount here. So they told us that he pays medical aid for himself and for his wife. So for him, it's gonna be this amount if he was alone. But then because it's him and his wife, and a wife is a first dependent, this is the amount he pays per month. If he had children, his children will pay this amount each. So, but in this case, it's just him and his wife. So this is where he falls under. So the first question says, calculate Mr. Rasuta's monthly salary after deduction. So first of all, we need to think about the first deduction to think about is tax, right? We want to know how much does he pay in tax from his annual amount. This is his annual amount, and we are subtracting 305,850 rands. Why? Because of this tax bracket here. This tax bracket that he falls under tells us that first of all he will pay 63,853 rands plus an additional 31% for any amount above this. So we want to know from his annual salary how much more does he earn above this amount here. So when you subtract that amount from here, from what he gets per year, you get 41,321 rands. Now that we know how much more does he earn, we need to multiply that by 31% because that's what they are charging him in tax. So 31% of 41,321 is 12,000 rands, 12,809 rands and 51 cents. So, but that's not the total amount of tax they charge him per year. So we need to add this amount, the 31%, plus what they actually deduct from his salary here. So that means that in the whole year, he pays 76,662 rands and 51 cents for tax. But then remember, I did mention that he falls under this tax rebate, and this tax rebate means this is how much they're going to reduce his tax by. So we need to calculate the reduced tax. We don't have to leave that out. So we take what he was supposed to be charged per year, we subtract by his rebate, and this is the amount he pays per year. So his total deductions will be the total tax he pays per annum plus Remember this 620 rands, 620 rands that he pays here. But then one thing I forgot to do here was to multiply this by 12. So we have to say 620 multiply by 12. So you put that in brackets and then you'll get the actual amount here. Let me just write the actual amount. So now I fixed that mistake. The total deduction is the total tax they charge him for the whole year per annum plus the total amount he pays in medical aid per annum. So he pays 620 for 12 months and that makes up 7,440 rands. So when you add this together, you get this amount. So this is his total deductions. And we have to answer the part that says calculate Mr. Rasuta's monthly salary after the deduction. So we're going to take his total deduction and this salary he gets in a year. We need to subtract this from that so that we can know what's his salary after deduction. So here it is. His annual salary subtract annual tax, annual total deductions, tax and the medical that he's paying for. And then this is how much he gets per year. So now remember, we need to calculate what he gets monthly. The thing about math literacy, you have to always explain whatever you are calculating because literacy is all about words. So we have to explain when we do our calculations. So you write his monthly salary after deduction will be equals to this amount here divide by 12 because there are 12 months in a year, and then therefore he earns 22,565 rands, comma 16 cents per month. In fact, I need to put that there, per month. This is what comes to his account. So the second question says, why is it necessary for citizens to pay tax? Give two reasons. Well, this ones you have them in your notes. It can be any two reasons, whether it's to build, for infrastructure, for social grants and building schools, all those type of reasons that you have in your notes and that you know, it's okay. Any will be acceptable as long as it's correct. The other one that I gave you was activity 7, and it says Mr. Bush is 54 years old. Is a 54 years old employee at the Gauteng Department of Education. He contributes 7.5% of his monthly basic salary towards the GEPF, which is the Government Employee Pension Fund. So what I like doing as I am calculating, I like to highlight the most important factors or facts about the story I'm reading. And because they're already telling me that he contributes this amount, I had to remind myself that I'm going to have to take his salary, multiply it by this percentage here to know how much does he contribute towards the employee pension fund. But let's continue with the story. He receives a bonus that is equivalent to his monthly basic salary. So this means that if he gets 26,309 rands, 58 cents per month, it means he gets this for 12 months, he's gonna get an additional same amount equivalent 26,309 rands and 58 cents, which means that it makes his salaries to be a total of 13 in a year. So we need to bear that in mind and you will see why that is important. It continues to say that the bonus is tax deductible. He pays medical aid for his 3 children, his wife, his children and his wife. He also receives a housing allowance that is tax deductible. Okay, so I also highlighted here so that I can remember that it's him and his 3 children and his wife in the medical aid. So this is his salary advice, it's his pay slip, and we had some missing values that we had to write, and I went ahead and calculated this, to which I'm going to talk to you about how I calculated this in few moments. But I did this so that as I solve my problems now, it will be easy for me to use these values depending on what the question says to me. So the first question requires us to calculate the value of A, and what I had said up there was that I had put a reminder that I'm gonna have to take the salary and multiply it by the percentage, which is 7.5. And when I do that to get the value of A, I get 1,973 rands and 22 cents. And then the value of B, you get it by adding everything here. But now the tricky part is that if you add everything here, you will get 9,920 and 16 cents, which is what most of you got and wrote this as his total deduction. But you need to remember that on this month, he's getting paid twice. He's getting a bonus, and that bonus, they told us there that the bonus is taxable, okay, is tax deductible. So we need to then add the tax twice. Sorry, I'm waiting for my phone to focus. Okay, there we go. Okay. Yeah, so the tax have to be added twice. That's why I said times by 2, because he's getting his salary twice, and the bonus that he's getting is tax deductible. So when you add the second tax here to this amount here, then you get 14,000 rand, 482 rand and 13 cents. The last one is C, which is his net salary. Net salary is salary after deductions. So you take this value here, which is his gross, you subtract it by the deductions, and then you get 39,337 and 3 cents. So remember, you have to show your calculation so that you can get full marks. So it's 1 mark for the step, 1 mark for the final answer. So the next question says, use calculations to show how the value of 61,296 rand on the tax table for the third tax rate was derived. So they want you to prove how this was calculated. So now a question like that wants you to have this value as your final answer. So now we're going to go to the third tax tax rate brackets, whatever they call it, on the tax table. So here is the third tax bracket from the tax table. It's this one here. So they want us to show how this was calculated, and you need to understand, every time when you see the first amount on the tax rates, this amount here was calculated from the previous amount. So this represent 61,000 plus 31% of this amount here, and the 61,000 represent the previous amount, which is 33,840 plus 26%. That's how it works. So in order to prove this amount here, we need to go to the previous part of the table, which is 33,840 plus 26% of any amount above 188,000. So what we do, we take this amount, we say plus 26, which is what you see here. That's what I did, plus 26%, multiply by, and by the way, 26%, remember, it can be written as 26 over 100. So you take that 26%, you multiply by 293,600 minus 188,001 rands. This amount is from here. Remember, we are using this to prove this. So we need to take this whole formula here, multiply it by what you see here. When you punch all these numbers in a calculator, they give you the 61,295.74 that we are asked to prove. Now we have the last question that is very long. It's out of 11 marks. So, but it says Mr. Bush complained that even though his housing allowance is taxable, he still believes he is overtaxed on a monthly basis. Use calculations to verify his statement. So those are the formulas we need to use to verify his statement. So now the formulas we're gonna have to use this one. So here I need to calculate the taxable income by taking the annual gross salary, subtracting it with the annual pension fund contribution. So I have to firstly know what is his annual gross salary. So I take his monthly salary and I multiply it by 13. Now I understand that one may wonder, why do we do that? This presents us with a new problem. Why do we have to multiply by 13 when we know that annually we only have 12 months? Well, if you multiply by 12, I wouldn't mark you wrong because, I understand the thinking behind. But on this question, remember that he gets an extra income, a 13th salary, which is his bonus. And that bonus, they told us in the statement that it is tax deductible, plus 1,200 per month for 12 months, which is also tax deductible. So we have to add this together. So when we add this together, we get 356,424 and 55 cents. So this is what he gets per year as his gross salary before any deduction is made. So we know that he pays annual pension. He pays his pension fund annually. So we need to calculate that amount, multiply it by 12 months because annual means 12, and then we see that he contributes 23,678 rands and 64 cents per year. So we see that he contributes this amount per year towards his pension fund. So now we can work with this formula because we have all the things that are required. So taxable income is equals to annual gross, which is this much, subtract by the annual pension fund, which is this much. And when you subtract this two, you get 332,745 rands and 90 cents as his taxable income. Now, I was writing the second formula here until I realized that in order for me to work with this formula, I'm gonna have to know what is his annual tax payable. First of all, what tax should he be paying for me to work with the second formula? So I started by doing that, by calculating that. So to calculate that, we come to this tax bracket right here. It tells us that he pays 61,000 something plus 31% of any amount above this. Because we know that he's going to pay 61,296 rand and 31% of any amount above this amount here, we take his salary per year, his annual income, and then we subtract it with that amount that they have put there on that tax bracket there. And then when you do that here, this is what he pays towards tax every year, which can be rounded off to 2 decimal places as 23 cents. Then we can go ahead and work with the second formula, annual tax payable minus annual medical tax credit minus rebates. Now, why are we subtracting annual medical tax credit? Is because if you have your own medical, this amount comes back to you. Hence, that's why we're using the subtraction. Plus rebates, you know what I said? I said rebates are amounts that your tax is reduced by or the amount that is refunded to you. So we take this annual tax here, we write it, we subtract by the annual tax credit. Remember what he pays for. He pays for himself, for 3 children and his wife. So you come here, this is where he is. That's him, that's his wife, and then this is for additional dependent, that's his children. So you take this amount, you multiply it by 3, then you add it plus this plus that, then you get this amount that I wrote here, 13,776 rent. You can confirm that. You can confirm that because it does happen that sometimes a person can make mistakes, but should give you around this amount. Then you subtract his tax credit, his rebate. So let's look at his rebate. Where does he qualify to be under? He is how old? He is 54 years old. So he's somebody who's under 65, right? No, sorry. He is somebody who's under 65. So this is what should be reduced for him. So you take that amount, there it is here, you subtract by 8, and then at the end you get 46,155 rands and 23 cents. Now this is annual tax that he has to pay. We need to calculate monthly so that we can answer the question. You take that, you divide by the 13 month, including that extra tax he pays for month number 13 with the bonus. So you include that in here, and then you get 3,550 and 40 cents. Now you can do that, or you can get 3,846 rands and 27 cents when you divide by 12 months. If you divide by 12 months, this is what you will get. So then we need to conclude, because the question requires us to prove that he is right or whether he's wrong by saying that he's overcharged for tax. So to answer the question, I said, therefore, Mr. Bush pays a tax of 4,561 rand and 97 cents, which is 715 rand and 70 cents more than what he should be paying. So he is right. He is overpaying, or he's being overcharged. So it will depend on which figure you use here to calculate. And guys, that's it. That's taxation, and this will also be in your test.